promised I was going to cover this topic, this far as the origin of the church condemnation of homosexuality. And this is where I'll be reading from. So for those who are listening, reading from here. So I'll most likely put the link down in the description for those who want to read it for themselves. And I do my best to read it. Like I said, I'm not the best reader, but I do, pretty well, right? So I don't have the best vocabulary or the best vernacular, right? But I'll do my best, okay? Reading on. But it's very good article, very good thing. So I messed up before I had to come back again. So, but this is why going to why the church started condemnation of what we know today as homosexual eunuchs or trans people, right? Where did it come from? Who started it, and why did it happen? So we know the end of it. We've been dealing with that for years, right? The church or the black church is against what we know today as homosexuality, is against what we know as urinism or trans or androgynous. Where did it come from and why? All right. So when we know the root, we can deal with the sickness. We can heal it. All right. We can deal with it, but we don't know the origin of it and what it's capable of. We'll never really be able to really, you say conquer, right? So we got to be more than conquerors, right? All right. So reading, I'm going to to read, right? Reading to what it says. Okay. This is the historic origins of the church condemnation of homosexuality. And it reads, on May 14th, 390, an emperor decree was posted at the Roman hall of Minerva, a gathering place for actors, writers, and artists, which criminalized for the first time the sexual practice of those whom we call homosexual men. This had never happened before in the history of law. The prescribed penalty was death by burning. This law was promulgated by an emperor who at the time was under a penance set by St. Ambrose, the Bishop of Milan. And the law was issued in the context of a persecution of heresies. Homosexual men at the imperial court had been powerful opponents of Catholic doctrine during the 4th century conflicts over the nature of Jesus Christ, known as the Arian controversies. Prior to 390, both religious and secular law had targeted only one particular form of homosexuality. When a man or youth who otherwise exhibited a very attraction toward women nonetheless agreed to or was forced to play a female role in intercourse with other men. For example, biblical law against homosexual acts call it an abomination and prescribe death as punishment when a man lies with a male the way one lies with women. Meanwhile, only heterosexually oriented men, including bisexual men who properly would properly be called male, since potency with women was the primary proof of masculinity. Augustus Caesar's law against adultery likewise prohibited intercourse with males, and may well have provided the impetus for a widely attested wave of castrations in the early empire. In order to supply sex partners who were not male, as late as 342, Constantius II issued a decree opposing exquisite punishment for the crime which occurs when a male gives himself in marriage to an effeminate, literally a woman, and what he wants is for the effeminate to play the male role in sex, literally project male parts, thus for himself to play the female role. Okay, men lacking desire for or opponents with women, like today's homosexual men, were never intended by these laws. They would not they would not have been deemed on the whole to be male. Read that again. Men lacking desire for or potency with women, like today's homosexual men, were never intended by these laws. They would not have been deemed on the whole to be male. Maleness implied playing the role of penetrator, procreator, those who did not fail to meet the ancient criteria for being called male. So if you wasn't putting in, or you wasn't putting in a baby, if you wasn't going inside of anybody, you was not deemed male, right? By that standard at the time, okay? One could say, be called male. One could say that the very concept of masculinity or virility was defined throughout the ancient Mediterranean, not in contrast to women, not in contrast to women, but to homosexual men. One could say that the very concept of masculinity and virility was defined throughout the ancient Mediterranean, not in contrast to women, but to homosexual men. And numeral loci or loci can be adduced to show the exclusively homosexual men were called non-male, half male, neither male or female, androgynous or third sex, but never male. Exclusively homosexual men were called non-male, half male, neither male nor female, androgynous or third sex, but never male. It is very little known. It is a very little known fact that there was a category of men in the ancient Mediterranean who were called natural or constitutional eunuchs. It is even less known that these eunuchs are defined in the early 3rd century Roman laws as having no physical defects. At most, they were peculiar mental orientation. They had a peculiar mental orientation. They were evidently they were called born homosexuals. And these laws they differentiated from castrated men and others who did not have physical defects. Natural eunuchs were entitled to marry women, adopt, uh, own property since they was no bodily defect present as impended to that. My thing messing up on, excuse me, y'all. While castrated men were prohibited from doing all these things. Nonetheless, Juvenal had found that when eunuchs marry a woman, it's hard not to write satire. For more detailed discussion on the definition of eunuchs, okay, as I'm going to more about what eunuchs and all this was about, woo at the time. Um, okay, yeah, I'm gonna read this part too, but this is also important. I'm skipping on down, but reading part when they read the satire that people had at the time about eunuchs and all that. Okay, regardless of what homosexual Christians may feel today about status, Jesus' status as God, it's clear that in the 4th century there were identified as powerful enemies of the Catholic Church. This is not to place. This is not the place to examine the merits of official church doctrine to discuss whether Jesus was more likely was more or less like other human beings, or whether male role in a recreative act could properly be attributed to God. Suffice to say that early supporters of the Nicene Creed saw homosexual men as dangerous virus. Content this one. So yeah, so basically, I want to read that. It's more that it goes into, like I said, you can read more into the origin and beginning, and it's definitely more. I might make a part 2 to this, get into the rest of it, but just covering that, just wanted to say that uh, it's good to know that where this idea come from and what was the mindset regarding gender roles, regarding who was considered the feminine or woman and all of that, and where did that come from, and how did this affect people today, and how Sodom, yeah, so I'm gonna do part 2. I think I might said it before in one of the videos, but how Sodom got connected with homosexuality, or homosexuality with Sodom and voodoo, right? But get into that. But like I said, it was Augustus, I think, was the main one that did all of that. All right, changed that. So, but just looking at it, like I say, Yeshua put trans people as a or eunuchs as a spearhead to the movement, and now we're now where Christ said, if the world hated you, Noah hated him first, right? And the persecution was necessary. You know, it wasn't in vain. The pain was necessary, but it wasn't in vain. Okay, so just know that what you're going through it for a reason. And I like how they go too, that you had other eunuchs that were fought against God's people. You had eunuchs who fought for God's people. All right. So there's more I could get into. I could probably make this live probably 2 hours long, but I just want to kind of do piece by piece because it's better for me than the time I have at the moment right now. So y'all just keep that in mind. Just research, read, know more, read more. If you want to learn more, just hit me up. I'll give you the link so you can research or we can talk about it in time. But anyway, and just make sure you understand the difference between homosexuality and transgender. All right. So male, female, straight versus gay. All right. So if a man likes a trans woman, that man might be gay, but his attraction to that trans woman or cis woman is what we consider a heterosexual attraction or relationship. All right. But like that. Right. Okay. James Speed want to say I'm out for now. Y'all study, be up, and like I say, Matthew 19 and 12, research. Shalom.